Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Wednesday, December 11th. Before we get into today's play of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up not touching anything on the board yesterday as there really wasn't much to talk about. Couple of NBA games here and there, very, very slim amount of college basketball games, but we ended up not coming up with anything. A couple of upsets, though, in college basketball as Louisville and Maryland both lost. I don't know if Maryland really counts as an upset, though, even though they were the number 4 team in the country because of the fact that Penn State was favored in that game. But either or, 2 of the top 4 lost, and it seems like every single team in college basketball simply just doesn't want to be in possession of the 1 seed. I believe, according to one stat I saw on ESPN, it's the first time that 4 1 seeds have lost before the end of December since 1945. Something like that. March Madness is probably going to be crazy. I'm looking forward to it. But as of right now, there has been no dominant team, which I definitely like to see, as I'm a big fan of chaos in the later months. But for today's card, there's a lot of NBA, and there's also some college basketball. And we'll be talking about an NBA matchup between the New Orleans Pelicans and the Milwaukee Bucks, as that game will be taking place at roughly 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A lot of line movement in this game, as Milwaukee originally opened up as 14-point favorites, and they are currently down to 10. And our play of the day is actually going to be a hold-your-nose pick. We are going to be taking the New Orleans Pelicans plus 10, which is available on FanDuel at minus 110. Now, I know New Orleans is absolutely terrible, and I know that Milwaukee's probably the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. As if you've looked at both teams in this matchup, they're headed in opposite directions, as the Pelicans are currently in the middle of a massive losing streak, and I'm actually trying to pull out the specific number right now. The Pelicans have lost 9 straight games, and the Bucks have won 15 straight games. However, money has poured in on the Pelicans. They've gone from plus 14 to plus 10. So some of you might be wondering why that has occurred, and the reason is because of the fact that Giannis Antetokounmpo for the Milwaukee Bucks has officially announced he is not going to be played today due to a quad injury, so he is out. Milwaukee's starting lineup in his absence will be Eric Bledsoe, Wesley Matthews, Chris Middleton, Ersan Ilyasova, and Brook Lopez. Am I saying that the Bucks won't win the game? I'm not saying that, but 10 points, I just think that's a little bit too high without Giannis in the lineup. I know that, according to the odds makers, Giannis is worth 4 points because of the fact that it's gone from 14 to 10. Do I think that's accurate? No. I think Giannis is probably worth closer to 6 or 7 points, if I'm being honest with you. He's probably the MVP again. He's been fantastic so far this season. He's averaging 30.9 points per game, along with 13.2 rebounds per game. I think he's worth a lot more than 4 points to a spread. Now, I know the Pelicans have been awful on the road this season at 2-9, and they don't even have to win the game. All they have to do is keep this game relatively close. If they lose this game by about 15, then I think it's worth the shot alone based on the fact that Milwaukee's pretty much announced that they don't really care about this game and that they're going to try to save Giannis for more important matchups in the future. I think this game will be pretty close. Is it possible that Milwaukee runs the Pelicans out of the gym? Definitely possible, but at the same point, I don't really know who's going to score that much for Milwaukee. I know Middleton has the ability to put up around 30 points. Other than that, though, I'm not a big Bledsoe guy. Wesley Matthews is more of just a pretty old spot-up shooter at this point. Ilyasova's a shooter, but, he doesn't really create his own shot at all. And Brook Lopez, Splash Mountain, but at the same point, he also doesn't really create any of his own shots. So I just don't think there's going to be enough creativity for Milwaukee's offense. And the Pelicans, even though their defense is absolutely terrible, their offense has actually been pretty good this season, so I think they should be able to score enough points to keep this game close. New Orleans is averaging 112.8 points per game, which is definitely respectable. And I think that with Giannis out of the lineup, I think Brandon Ingram could be a matchup problem for Milwaukee to deal with. Redick's also a real pain to come around screens and all that other stuff. Drew Holiday's a pretty good shooting guard. And I just simply think that the Pelicans have enough offensive weapons to keep this game within single digits. Will the Bucks win? Probably. But I think the Bucks will win closer to 5 or 6 than closer to, I'd say, 11 or 12. So for that reason, the play of the day will be on the New Orleans Pelicans, which is available at plus 10 on FanDuel or DraftKings, whichever line you want to use, at minus 110, and that will be the play of the day. Now, talking about some of the leans on today's card, we'll start out with the NBA. A couple of interesting matchups here. I would lean to Houston minus 11.5 against Cleveland. I've talked about fading really bad teams in the past. I mentioned how Cleveland seems like they already quit on their coach Beeline. Since that report came out, they're winless and they've gotten blown out in several games. I just think that do I like the Rockets as a team? No. But I think Harden will probably go for 40. I think Westbrook will probably play pretty well. And Capella's also real pain to handle on the low block for the reboundings. I just think the Rockets will score too many points. Cleveland's offense looks like a mess. I think Houston should win this game by about 15. Lean to Houston on that one. Other than that, though, looking at the rest of the NBA, I'm actually going to lean to Charlotte plus the 10.5 against the Nets. As a Nets fan, I know that this team's played really well lately in Kyrie Irving's absence, but I know they also just won by double digits against Charlotte in the last time they played, which happened on Friday. But at the same point, that game was actually really close for about 3 quarters before the Nets blew it open in the fourth. I just think it's too many points. I think that Charlotte should be able to keep this game within single digits. The Nets should probably win, but these teams have also just faced each other, so they should be familiar with each other's tendencies. I think that will lead to a closer game. Lean to Charlotte to cover this number. I just think the number's too high. I think the Nets should win by about 4. Lean to Charlotte on that one. Other than that, though, not really much else to talk about on the NBA card. Not really a big fan of much. I mean, of course, you can talk about leaning to the Lakers at minus 8.5. I mean, money's already poured in on them as they've been a complete cash cow so far this season. If you want to take the Lakers, you can. I think Orlando's a pretty sneaky team in terms of point spreads. They're pretty good. Lakers should win the game, but I mean, there's no way I'd go against the Lakers based on how they've currently been playing. So small lean to the Lakers, but I think if you really wanted it, I don't really feel great about laying 8.5 on the road. But that's just my thoughts on that game. Now for college basketball, a very interesting matchup between Michigan and Illinois. Kind of similar to what happened yesterday with Maryland and Penn State, how Penn State ended up closing out as the favorite despite facing the number 4 team in the country. Same thing's happening with Michigan against Illinois here. Michigan was originally a 1-point favorite, and they're currently down to a 1.5-point underdog. I'm not telling you to blindly bet Illinois, but I'm simply telling you that if you are going to bet this game and you end up betting Michigan, all the signs are pointing to you just being incorrect. I think Michigan's a really good team, and I actually think Michigan will win this game. Just because of the fact that I just have faith in Juwan Howard. And one thing I really don't like about about Maryland, is Turgeon as the coach. I just really don't think he's that good of a coach, and I think that's one of the reasons why they haven't had a serious run in March in his career. I actually like Juwan Howard. I think he's a really good coach. I think Michigan's a really well-coached team with a lot of talent, and I think that even though they lost at Louisville in embarrassing fashion, a lot of teams will lose at Louisville in embarrassing fashion because I still think Louisville's a top 3 team in the country, even though they lost yesterday. I think Michigan could win this game. I think they probably will win this game because I don't really like Illinois' ability to close out games after choking against Maryland in their last game. But based on the line movement alone, there's no way I can bet Michigan. I mean, there's no way I can put money on a team that's the 5th-ranked team in the country against an unranked team on the road, and yet the unranked team's favored by 1.5. I went through this yesterday. Just, if I'm going to play, I have to touch Illinois. If I'm going to pass, but if you bet Michigan, that is I just don't recommend it. It's possible they win the game, but based on the line movement alone, I think that long term you should probably not be betting on those type of spots because everything in the line movement is just daring you to bet Michigan, and I think that's definitely a concern. So I'll lean to Illinois, but I'm not going to bet it personally. That's just my thoughts. Looking at the rest of the card, though, I'm going to lean to the first half under between Army and Merrimack. Merrimack, I've actually noticed, has been a pretty solid team in first half unders. They play a 2-3 zone defense, and it's their first year in Division I, so they don't really have the athletes to score a lot of points. Army is not a prolific offense by any means, but Merrimack has the ability to slow the pace of pretty much any single game. I know that Army's their adjusted tempo is 42nd in the nation, which is pretty high. But Merrimack's 2-3 zone, I think, will cause the pace to slow in this game, and I think you should see less points because of the desire of Merrimack to force every possession into the half court. So I think that will be more low scoring than people anticipate. Lean to the first half under in that game. Looking at some of the other matchups here, what do I like here? I have to lean to the under 125 between Wisconsin and Rutgers. I know Wisconsin won their last game, but I've seen Wisconsin play in Rutgers, and it is usually a mess. This game should probably end in the hundreds or the 110s. It's honestly that, just based on track record alone, Wisconsin just cannot score in this arena. I don't know what it is. This team just cannot get it done, and I definitely think that Wisconsin, after beating Indiana, that spread looked questionable in itself, but Wisconsin is really just not a good basketball team. If you've watched them play, this team can't score on a regular basis, and they also take up a ton of time on the shot clock every single possession. Same thing with Rutgers. Rutgers has actually been pretty decent so far this season, but Rutgers has always actually played pretty well out of conference, and they enter conference play and they get absolutely smacked. But both defenses are allowing roughly 63 points per game. I think this game should land somewhere in the 110s, and I think this game should go under. Lean to the under in Wisconsin-Rutgers. Other than that, though, not really much else to talk about, as college basketball has a decent amount of matchups, but not many matchups that are that great that are worth talking about. But the play of the day, once again, will be on the New Orleans Pelicans, which is available at +10 on FanDuel or DraftKings at +10 and -110. Other than that, though, that's going to be this installment of Scott Selections here for Wednesday, December 11th. Good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.